6, 2017. First on the agenda is the School Board Administrative Matters and Reports. Does anyone have anything they would like to report or bring up at this time? Okay, Dr. Spence, we look forward. I'm going to take care of this. I have a couple of administrative matters that I need to bring up. First of all, I'm going to be circulating this around, and I think we got an email from Ms. Alexander about the National Math and Science Initiative College Readiness Program that's going to be held on September 15th at NAS Oceana. And so this is coming around, and they need, if you plan to attend, it's at 9:30 in the morning at Oceana, and they need your driver's license number, your name as it appears on your driver's license, and of course the state. So make sure you put everything exactly as it appears on your driver's license. I'll pass that around. Also, there is an amendment. I'm passing out an amendment to policy 6-57. So unless there is objection, this will be the version to be approved under the consent agenda. And the highlighted sections are what was changed. There's a little highlighted yellow highlights on here, so take a look and see. So, and you can, if you decide that later on you object to it, you can let us know at the end of our workshop. And I think that is it for administrative matters. Dr. Spence, we look forward to hearing the report about the standard of learning for 2016-17. Report.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Yes, we are going to take a look back at past year's performance on the standards of learning. Obviously, we know what that's done in terms of school accreditation, but I want to take a little bit deeper dive into the data, and so it looks like Tracy Legata is going to be doing that for us tonight. So we'll turn it straight over to you.
All righty. The screen size up here changes sizes. Is that usually on? Yeah, I'm going to push a button and everything's going to turn off, and then that's not going to be good. Okay. So are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Good evening, Chairwoman Anderson, Vice Chair Edwards, Dr. Spence, School Board. I'm Tracy Legata from the Office of Student Assessment. And this evening I'm going to present to you the 2016-17 SOL passing rates for Virginia Beach schools, and we'll be comparing those passing rates to the rates of the state. About a month ago, you received some passing rate data from the Department of Planning, Innovation, and Accountability. We're going to take a little bit closer look at that data you received, and that's where we're going to start. The tables that you see here on the screen represent the change in SOL test scores over the past 2 years. Overall division passing rates in reading and writing increased at most levels when comparing the 15-16 data to 16-17. The largest increases were in grades 4 and 6 reading and grade 8 reading and writing. Thank you. There was a slight decrease, you'll notice, in only one area, which was end of course reading, but that rate decreased from 92% passing to 91% passing. Overall, division-wide passing rates in mathematics increased from last year on 2 tests, grade 8 and Algebra 1, and as you can see, the remaining test scores showed either no change or a slight decrease from the previous year. Here you can see increases from last year in the area of history, a few areas where scores remain the same, and the 2 percentage point decrease in geography, which decreased from 97% to 95%. In science, you can see increases from last year and the areas where scores decreased slightly. Next, we're going to take a closer look at data by reporting groups. Here you see 3 years of passing rate data by subject for all students and for each reporting group in the area of reading. We see in the column on the right that each reporting group showed an increase in passing rates from last year. When we look at gaps comparing each reporting group to the all students group, the largest gaps overall exist in the Black, economically disadvantaged, and students with disabilities reporting groups. When comparing the Black reporting group to the all students group, the gap you see in red has decreased from 3 years ago from 14 points to 11 points.
And this is all grade levels.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
and it is the area of reading for everybody. When comparing the economically disadvantaged reporting group, the gap has decreased from 9 to 8 percentage points, or 9 to 8 points. And then when comparing the students with disabilities group, again in red are the gaps, there was a decrease from 34 to 33 points. Although there are noticeable gaps when looking at the English learners reporting group, a comparison at this time would not be appropriate because both of the last 2 years the Virginia Department of Education has changed the students that are included in that group to include more students that are exiting the program, so they're not comparable over the last 3 years. This is mathematics, and this data shows the passing rates for all reporting groups, and you'll see that they either remain the same or decreased slightly from last year. When we look at gaps, the largest gaps in math exist in the Black and students with disabilities reporting groups. When comparing the Black reporting group to the all students group, the gap has decreased from 3 years ago from 12 to 11 points. And when comparing the economically disadvantaged reporting group, the gap has decreased from 9 to 8 points. When comparing the students with disabilities group, the gap has remained steady over the last 3 years at 32 points. And a similar pattern exists when we look at writing, history, and science. To provide you with a little bit more perspective, I wanted to go ahead and show you some comparisons between our scores and the scores of the state of Virginia and over the past 3 years. This table, some of you have seen before, shows each of the SOL tests that are administered, and this is grades 3 through 8 first. And each column represents the year in which the data were compared. So the number in each cell represents the instances where the passing rate for Virginia Beach students is either above or below the passing rate of the state. So these are not passing rates, these are the differences in the passing rates. For example, if we look at the top row, grade 3 reading, the passing rate for Virginia Beach students as a group was 9 percentage points higher than the passing rate at the state in 2016-17. And when we look at 2016-17 across the board, you see Virginia Beach exceeded the state passing rates on all of the grade 3 through 8 assessments from 1 to 9 percentage points. And this table represents the end of course assessments. Virginia Beach exceeded the state passing rates on all but 2 SOL tests, World History 1 and 2. Although the Virginia Beach passing rates for these 2 assessments are not higher than the state's rates, World History 1 had a passing rate increase from 81% last year to 83% this year, and World History 2, the passing rate remained the same, but it was at 84%. A comparison Now, similar setup, but this is by reporting groups. Here you see the reporting groups listed on the left and the last 3 years of data. And just like the two previous slides, these numbers represent instances where the passing rates for Virginia Beach students was above or below those of the state. Virginia Beach students in each reporting group outperformed the reporting group at the state level. And in some areas, you'll see that there are double-digit differences. Here you see the same reporting groups, but this is for writing. And again, there are some double-digit differences to point out. Here's math. With some double-digit differences.
May I ask, can the English learners be also in the Asian group and the Hispanic group? Is that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And if there is a student with disability who is a male and economically disadvantaged,
Okay.
they would be in all
Okay,
groups.
thank you.
And then science. With some double-digit differences again. And last but not least, history. So just some summary points. Test scores increased on most tests, remained the same or decreased on some. In no instance was there a decrease on a test for 2 years in a row for these last 2 years. And when comparing reporting groups to the all students group by subjects, gaps decreased or remained the same from last year in most subject areas for most reporting groups, and increased slightly in a few cases. Since the passing rates for the all students group is increasing, and the passing rates for the other reporting groups are increasing, the gaps are closing, but they're closing slowly because the scores are increasing all around. When reviewing all students as a group and students by reporting groups and comparing them across the state, Virginia Beach students, as you saw, are outperforming the state in almost all areas. As we do each year, within the next several weeks, you'll be getting a very detailed assessment brief with the SOL data with a little bit even deeper analysis that will be done for you, and that is forthcoming. At this time, if you have any additional questions, I will be happy to answer those. Yes,
Ms.
ma'am.
McLeod.
Thank you. In your more detailed reports that you're going to be sending us, I call it diagonal reporting, because I'd love to go and see, since we're like 3rd, 5th grade, I'd like to compare when they were 3rd graders and they took the test and now they're in 5th grade. So I love apples and oranges, but to compare them is, it's not fair to the two different groups. So will you be able to provide to us comparing last year's 5th grade students and the previous time they took the test, so we can see how, I know it's a different test, a
We
different
can
grade level.
certainly
You get my point.
provide you with
I
some
call
of
it
that
diagonal,
analysis.
because instead of going across this way, going this way, so,
I'll be happy to do that.
thank
for
you, appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments, Ms. Manning?
I like to look at past advanced rates as well. We'll be diving into that
Yes.
more.
The
Okay.
past advance rates will be part of the assessment brief as well. And if I could remember, I'd offhand throw you out some information.
I pulled it up myself.
Yes, we will.
and,
That is part of the.
I really want to say English and reading and writing, we are really excelling in the past advanced rates over the state, a significant amount. However, I wasn't real pleased with the math and science scores on past advanced.
Yeah, there will be data and analysis on that very topic. Right.
Any other? Mr. Edwards?
The only eye catcher on the year to year, the first group that you showed us was, I think it was like 7th grade math, dropped like 5 points. But when you got to the state, so I was sitting there waiting for the state comparisons, and we were still above the state there. So again, I know the state tries to sustain comparability across the years in the tests, but that may be a case where it wasn't quite as comparable. Anyway, thank you for the information.
Sure, my pleasure.
I know that a couple of years ago, we found that the state had changed their testing and made things a little more harder. And do you see that is still happening, or do you think that's leveled out, or?
The assessments haven't been changed standards-wise in several years. It's getting ready to cycle again. As new standards come on board, the assessments will change again. To what level, I'm not completely sure. Since the assessments are already more rigorous, I don't know if they have plans to just include the new standards or to revamp the test completely like they did last time. But we've been pretty steady, and since the last assessment change, we've been, scores have been improving each year for the most part across the board. And then once the new standards come out, we'll see how much the assessment has changed. Might show a decline, possibly. If there's a slight change, maybe we won't see much of a decline like you typically see with a new test.
Right. I know that our scores have steadily climbed, and I attribute that to the fact that our rigor has picked up in Virginia Beach quite a bit as well.
I
So
would have to agree.
to make that happen. So thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Okay. I think the next thing on our agenda is calendar for the school year 2018-19. We are looking ahead.
Everyone's favorite topic.
Yay!
I love you. Good afternoon. I'm Eileen Cox. This is Lauren Nolasco. We are here as the co-chairs of the Calendar Development Committee for our 3rd year in a row. So today we're coming to you, as we did last year, early in the school year, to receive input from you about the parameters that you would like the Calendar Committee to work within as we develop the calendar for the coming school year. So before we jump into that, let's take a look at the current school year calendar.
So this probably looks very familiar to you. It's our current school year calendar. As you can see, it's 181 instructional days, 2 embedded days for professional learning, one of which took place during the in-service week. 8.5-day winter break, and we included 3 days of travel time before the Christmas holiday for that winter break. We had Veterans Day, Martin Luther King Day, and President's Day all observed for holidays, and the only adjusted dismissal days that were used were before holiday breaks and then during the end of year exam week.
So this year, again, we're looking for guidance from you as to the number of instructional days that you would like included in the calendar, whether or not professional learning days will be included, built into the calendar, and if so, how many, and then guidance on holidays and breaks. We also would like you to consider a recommendation that we move to a biennial calendar planning process so that we're going through this once every 2 years. What that would mean is if you approve that, we would bring to you a calendar proposal for the 18-19 school year as well as for the 19-20 school year.
This would be our tentative timeline. This all works. Tonight we're obviously presenting to get your feedback and your guidance here on the 6th. The calendar committee will meet October 5th to use your guidance to build out those calendar or calendars if we move forward that way. We'll come to you October 10th for a workshop with the calendar recommendations. We'll then post for e-town hall to get community stakeholder feedback from October 11th to October 25th. And then we'll come back on November 8th for the informational meeting and the 21st session.
This timeline is important. We made an adjustment that's important in moving back into September to start talking about the calendar rather than October, because it allows us to gather input from the community away from that Thanksgiving holiday, which we ran into last year. So at this time, we'd like to gather your thoughts related to the number of days included in the school calendar, professional learning days, again, those holidays, if there are specific holidays that you'd like us to make sure that are observed, or if you have guidance on the length of breaks, and then also get your thoughts on moving to a 2-year planning process. And at your seat, we did provide you the chart that has comparable district data. This was gathered in our Hanover research study last year. We did check and they have not changed, so we just wanted to provide that to you again.
Mr. Edwards?
On the timeline, will the committee have an opportunity to re-engage after the workshop, having in hand the town hall material? It just seemed, that's the only thing I didn't like about that, is the committee is not gonna have the benefit of the public input. And if there's a way to give them the opportunity before it comes back to us for info.
So 1 year, we provided the feedback to them through email and gathered any responses. And then last year, we met with the committee an additional
Okay.
time based on.
I mean, well, as long as that happens somehow, and, because, you know, I, on the 8th, I'd like to hear their take on the feedback from the community.
Are you talking about November 8th? You'd like to hear the community feedback? Okay,
Yep.
all right. Ms. Riggs?
Not so much this one, but what we're doing right now, just for future too. My question is, with this flex day on Friday that they had, what is the parameters for making up that time?
So this year, I'm looking for John, this year we did expand the time that they could make up the flexible hour, used to make up the hours, to work all the way through parent conferences and planning report cards.
So they have from now until then. It's not a 2-week period.
No.
Because some people were getting some wrong information. I just wanted to make sure.
I know that Farrell expanded it to make it a lot more, and there's some requirements in there that certain folks, that non-exempt employees don't go over 40 hours per week,
Right.
which actually helps them
Right.
make it up over a longer period of time. So it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
And I should just point out, I'm sorry I failed to mention this, our calendar committee is made up of principals from every level, teachers from every level, parents, community members are all invited to be part of the process.
Are there any suggestions from the board at this time? Because this is our time to give input before the calendar committee meets. Are there any suggestions that we have or we'd like to discuss? Ms. McLeod?
I still feel strongly about prior to school for professional development. Makes sense to me, so I like that we shifted it all towards the beginning so that they could actually apply what was learned in the professional development there. I think we've heard it clear that our military families especially, I'm gonna talk about winter break, Christmas break, whatever you wanna call it. And so I think that giving them the most possible time, recognizing we have, commands provided, or you get Christmas or you get New Year, so let's try to make it the best for those commands. And otherwise, I think you guys did a great job last year, so I don't have really think those are my two strong feelings. And then otherwise, I think you guys brought us a good calendar last year, so very similar. And I'm totally for doing the 2-year thing. Absolutely. And it helps families to plan,
Yes, it does.
so I think it's worthwhile.
I concur with that, and the fact that we have so many military children in our area, I think we really have to be completely mindful of the fact that, especially on military holidays, we need our students need to be able to spend time with their families. If it's, at all possible, I think those are things that we need to look at. And then what Ms. McLeod said about the winter holiday break, we need to be mindful of the fact that usually commands have a 2-week window and then another 2-week window that they give people leave for. So we need to keep all of that in mind as we move forward, and as much as we can be thinking about that, because we do have quite a bit of military in our area, so we're unique in that area, so. Mr. McLeod, Mr. McDonald, excuse me, did you have something that you'd like to add
I
with
did.
that?
Was I looking at you? In a
Yes, you
certain
are
way?
looking at me like.
The mix have it.
The mix have it.
Right now, our only flexibility for inclement weather is the one additional instructional day in the calendar, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Plus holidays, which we've used in the
Right.
past, we
Yes.
start there and then
Like to,
after that,
Yep.
as we've done in the past, we usually have minutes before days.
Thank you.
So I hate to open up this can of worms.
Oh, jeez.
But related to that question, the last time we were talking about this, we talked about lengthening the school day, and we said, well, that's an option. You could lengthen the school day, which essentially for high schools would build in some of the additional time that's needed. And we said, well, let's not do that because we're talking about school start times, but we now know based on our retreat conversation that that conversation is at least a little further down the road.
Right.
So a question that I would want to get a little direction on is, do you want to investigate the lengthening of the school day? There are a lot of obviously sort of downstream ramifications of doing that, because if you do it for high school in the current schedule, you're going to have to look at that, how long that stretches out your middle school day, which we've already bumped back 10 minutes. So there's all kinds of things that are involved with that, but I just want to not have that on the table and have you come back later and ask about that.
I personally would like to see some options brought forward to us for us to take a look at. Not that we're going to do it, but I would like to see those options brought forward. How do you all feel?
And I've always supported additional flexibility for inclement weather in some way, whether it be the additional days which we've used, we're now down to one additional days, having swapped for professional development days. So I remember the conversation about extending the day to build in some more of that time. So looking at it, I think, would be valuable.
Ms. Rye?
Right, but the flip of it is that it's there as an option if we need the extra days and to add it at that point, so I guess I'll be open-minded, but, that's my only comment there.
Right, and that's how we've handled it to this point since I've been here.
Mr. Edwards?
I presume the dynamics of the calendar committee adjust considerably if we start folding the start time discussion. I mean, is that a
Yeah, I'm
separate
really
or
not
it's a related
raising-
but separate?
Well, I'm really not raising the start time conversation as much as lengthening the school's day. So lengthening.
Okay. I mean,
Right.
the length of the day, which is only going to get longer one way or the other.
Right.
I mean, start time or end time. But will the
And
calendar
by the way, I'm
committee?
not recommending we do it. I just want.
No, you just want us to kick that ball around now and either deflate it or expect you to field it.
Right, correct.
So, feasibility? What does the administration think we should or not? I mean, I'm not sure I want to demand that we do it when you've already decided that, gosh, we hope they don't ask for
I think
that.
we could show you an option or two and have some conversation with the calendar committee about that. I think if you were going to ask us right now, we'd say not to do it because of we already moved the middle school day and it would really
Right.
lengthen their time in school. And they're already going till, what are they getting out at now, 4:15?
Confusion.
Yeah, 4:15. So it's a long day for them already.
Right.
So if we were gonna say, right this moment, I'd say we wouldn't recommend doing it and that we hold the option of adding minutes to the day if we need to do so down the road.
And because they're the last to start, no matter what we do, if we lengthen high school, obviously it's going to impact the elementary
Well,
runs
you
and
could
then et cetera.
lengthen you could move their start time forward.
Oh.
But that's antithetical to a lot of the conversations we have been having, so I think that's a bad idea as well.
No.
This is why we kicked this last time and said until we figure out what we're doing with the high school's day, it's really not a great conversation for us to have. It's just that that's a couple years away now, so I wanted to put it on the table, but I'm seeing a lot of head nodding when I say let's leave that alone for now.
Yeah.
And,
Because then you'd have to remove a day also. You'd have to go to 180. You can't lengthen the school day and.
Well, you can
Well,
for your high schools. I mean, anyway, I'm seeing a lot of head nodding for leave that one alone right now. So we'll leave that one alone right now.
The second day back.
So
But
thank you for
we are
deflating that
now,
ball.
but we are now counting minutes and hours the same way everybody else is.
Well, we anticipate that will go into effect in January. That has not gone into effect yet. That has not been signed into law yet. So we anticipate that.
Well, everybody else is already doing it.
They are. And
It's
Virginia
like the
Beach
speed
has
limit
not.
is gonna go up on January 1st, and everybody's already going 65 plus.
Again, we
And we're
anticipate
poking
that's going to
along.
go into effect in January.
Okay.
Well, listen,
I get it.
with the direction of the board, we can begin counting it that way now. That's certainly not a problem. We have not done so in the past. But we do anticipate that will actually be encoded into state law in January, so there really wouldn't be any reason for us not to look at the calendar that way, at least in terms of how the calendar committee's developing this next calendar.
If we had consensus, would that be adequate, or do you need a formal vote?
Well, how about this, because
I mean, I think there's consensus now.
yeah, if there's consensus on that because we anticipate that being formal in January, and this is a calendar that doesn't take place for next year, then we just give the calendar committee the understanding that that's how we're gonna count minutes, and then that'll allow us to come back to you with a sense of how we meet our waiver requirements and all of that. Is everybody comfortable with that?
I don't see any, and I see,
I just wanted
Ms.
to
Holt?
thank you, ladies, because I remember last year you gave us several calendars. Not only one, not only two.
Well, that's still to come. I mean, that's not there
Right,
yet.
so you've had a lot of practice in that, and you still smile, so there's not a lot of wiggle room with it. I mean, you can't change the calendar, we've had it for a long time, so thank you in advance.
Sure, so we'll use this year's current calendar as sort of our template, taking into account the professional learning days toward the beginning of the school year, and also the length of the winter break and ensuring some adequate travel time for military families, or for all families, but especially military families. Okay, thank you. And we will do 2 years.
Here, here.
All right, thank you very much.
we're gonna have a huge workshop on that day.
I'm sick that day.
Reliable co-chair there.
That's okay.
So, that completes our workshop. Ms. Manning, I believe you're doing, agenda planning with us this evening. Would you like to do that before we go down that way?
Sure.
Okay.
That's our workshop, we get a whole hour.
Yeah, so that's good.
Sometimes that happens and
last
sometimes
year
it
we-
doesn't.
We're not doing close.
Did anybody bring music?
We are, but,
You can go outside and
Oh.
play.
Did you hear thunder?
Yeah, there was thunder.
I did.
Do we have time
Um,
to close?
You know, it's one of those things where if we get into it, we may have to come out of it and then come back to it. She really did want to be as
okay.
part of it.
Yeah,
I just
that
realized
was
I
her
Problem is
understanding
that-
as we were
We'll
doing
get
that.
into that, then
Oh,
we'll be
well,
rushed.
I can't be here later. I just realized I have to leave early, so I won't be able to be here.
Okay.
We actually,
No, we'll be
it's
too
4:37, so that gives us an hour that we, that we could,
Yeah, let's do it.
that we could have a discussion and then, what do you think, Mr. Edwards?
I think we ought to go ahead and do it. I mean,
I'll text her.
Mrs. Felton had the opportunity to be on the committee, and so she is aware of what we're talking about, and the committee is aware of how she felt.
Right.
So, and that can be shared with the board as the board might desire. It probably, particularly given Mrs. Manning's potential or, requirement to depart and where we are now,
Yeah, that would be a wasted hour, so I agree. I think let's go ahead and, Mr. Edwards, if you have the
I do
paper, we
now.
can read into it.
I do now. I move that the board adopt a resolution to recess into closed meeting pursuant to the exemptions from open meetings allowed by section 2.2-3711, part 8, paragraphs 1 and 7 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended for A, personnel matters. Discussion of or consideration of interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees pursuant to section 2.2-3711A1, namely to discuss contract amendment for a specific administrator. B, legal matters, consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the board, where consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by the board regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to section 2.2-3711A7, namely to discuss contract amendment for a specific administrator.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we go into close. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Okay, we are
Sorry.
closed.